Biogeography. Biogeography is the geographical distribution of species. Darwin noted that the species on the Galapagos Islands resembled the species on mainland South America more than the species on other groups of islands even. Because of this evidence, Darwin proposed that the Galapagos species must have come from a common ancestor of the species on the mainland of South America, or that the Galapagos varieties evolved from the mainland immigrants. On the origin of the species. In 1859, Darwin published his observations and findings in a book called On the Origin of the Species. In his book, he highlighted evidence gathered from comparative anatomy, comparative embryology, the fossil record, and biogeography, as well as meticulously documented examples of adaptations to conclude that all species alive today are descended with modifications from ancestral species, and proposed natural selection as the mechanism that drives evolution. Evolution by natural selection. Natural selection is the process by which competition for resources and an organism's ability to survive and reproduce in a given environment result in changes in groups of living things over time, generation by generation. Natural selection results in adaptations that enhance an organism's ability to survive and reproduce within its environment. Natural selection is based on inherited, rather than Lamar's acquired, traits. So take for example this picture of a leaf, or is it an insect? It is an insect with adaptations to look almost exactly like a leaf. Therefore it blends in better with its surroundings and may avoid getting eaten by a predator. It survives and passes down its traits to future offspring to look more and more like leaves. The modern synthesis. Charles Darwin was virtually unaware of the details of inheritance worked out by Mendel. They both died without ever collaborating their findings, Darwin in 1882 and Mendel in 1884. Mendel had discovered the key to how populations gained variety and could evolve. Darwin died without knowing this. The modern synthesis. However, in the decades following their deaths, scientists continued their work, specifically to find an explanation for how populations evolved by natural selection. The new movement, fusing the principles of Darwin and Mendel, came to be known as the modern synthesis. Modern evidence. Advances in the studies of molecular biology, geology, and physics have provided a number of additional ways to determine relatedness among living things. Molecular evidence demonstrates that organisms share rRNA, common genes, common proteins, and molecular homologies. rRNA. rRNA's function to make ribosomes has not changed over time. However, the DNA that encodes rRNA mutates very slowly without affecting its function. If the rRNA sequence is similar amongst different species, then they must be closely related in evolution. The more similar the rRNA, the more recent was their common ancestor. Common genes. The more genes organisms have in common, the more closely related the species are. We have genes from every living thing that came before us in evolution, including bacteria, yeast, reptiles, early mammals, etc. This is called gene conservation. One good example of this is the CYCS gene, the gene that encodes for a protein called cytochrome C. This protein is important in the electron transport chain in mitochondria. Therefore, most aerobic organisms have this gene. 50% of genes in humans and bananas are the same. 96% of genes in humans and chimpanzees are the same. And 99.9% of genes in all humans are the same. Common proteins. Having common polypeptides also signals close relationships in evolution and common origin. For example, the proteins controlling all color pigments. One good example of this is melanin, the brown pigment that controls the color of our skin, the color of eyes, the color of feathers, the color of scales, and so much more. Molecular homologies. The same cell structure and common cell parts amongst all living things provides evidence that we are all related. Cytochrome C is part of the electron transport chain in mitochondria. Cytochrome C is found in every aerobic eukaryote, including animals, plants, and protists. The amino acid sequences of many of these have been determined, and comparing them shows that they are related.